I was always the kind of person who didn't mind being alone. In fact, I found comfort in it. I live in a quiet neighborhood, just a few streets away from the city. A small two-bedroom house was all I needed. The routine was simple: work, home, sometimes errands, and the occasional visit to a friend. On most nights, I would sit in the living room, a cup of tea in hand, with my favorite TV show in the background, enjoying the silence. But one night, just one night, changed everything. It was a Thursday around midnight. I had just finished a long shift at the office and was looking forward to a peaceful night of rest. I let the front door click shut behind me and locked it, as I always did. The streetlights outside flickered as I walked into the hallway, and something about the night felt off. It wasn't the usual calm I was used to. I brushed it off, assuming it was the exhaustion from work. I dropped my bag on the couch and headed straight for the kitchen. I always made a cup of tea before bed. It was like a little ritual to wind down. As I was waiting for the kettle to boil, I heard it. A faint knock. I froze. The sound was subtle, almost like someone trying to be quiet, but it was unmistakable. Someone was knocking on my door. At first, I thought I might have imagined it. Maybe the wind, or an echo from a neighbor's house. But no, the knock came again. This time a little louder. My heart skipped a beat. I wasn't expecting anyone. I hadn't received any messages or calls from anyone in the last few hours. It was late, too late for someone to be visiting. I stood still, listening, the sound of the kettle filling the silence. The knock came again, this time more urgent. I felt a chill creep up my spine. I walked toward the door, hesitating for just a second. Who could it be at this hour? I peeked through the peephole, but all I could see was darkness. There was no sign of movement, no one standing there. I thought about ignoring it, going back to my tea, pretending I didn't hear anything, but something told me I shouldn't. So, against my better judgment, I slowly turned the doorknob and cracked the door open just enough to see outside. Nothing. The porch was empty, the night air heavy and still. I stepped outside, scanning the surroundings, but there was no one there. Just the distant hum of the streetlights and the rustling of leaves in the wind. I was about to shut the door when I heard it again. This time, it wasn't a knock. It was a faint, whispering sound, almost like someone dragging their feet across the concrete. I felt my stomach drop. It was coming from the side of the house. My first instinct was to go inside and lock the door, but something stopped me. I couldn't explain it. The feeling I had wasn't fear exactly, but something deeper, something I couldn't ignore. I turned around, my hand still gripping the door handle, and stepped cautiously toward the side yard. The faint, dragging sound continued, and as I rounded the corner of the house, I saw it. A figure, hunched over, crouching by the bushes near the fence. It was so dark that I could barely make out their shape. I couldn't tell if it was a man or a woman, but I could see the faint movement, slow, deliberate, like they were waiting for something. I froze. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to run back inside and lock the door, but my legs wouldn't move. I stood there, staring at this figure, unsure what to do. It didn't seem like a person who was lost or in need of help. There was something unsettling about the way they moved, almost too calm, too slow. The figure finally stopped and straightened up, and then, just like that, it disappeared into the darkness. I blinked, trying to make sense of what I had just seen. Had I imagined it? Was I still half asleep from work? I stepped forward, but the area around the bushes was empty. No sign of anyone, nothing but the rustling of the trees and the quiet of the night. I quickly turned and went back inside, bolting the door behind me. My hands were shaking as I locked the deadbolt, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. I went into the living room, sat down on the couch, and tried to focus on anything but what had just happened. I thought about calling the police. I thought about telling someone what I had seen, but I wasn't even sure what I had seen. A person? A shadow? Maybe I was just overreacting. A person? A shadow? Maybe I was just overreacting. But the truth is, the feeling lingered. It wasn't fear, but unease, like something wasn't finished. Like I hadn't seen the whole picture. I kept thinking about the way the figure moved, how they crouched, almost as if they had been waiting. I turned off the lights, hoping that sleep would come quickly, but it didn't. The house felt too quiet. My mind raced, wondering if that person was still out there. watching. And then, just as I was about to drift off, a soft knock, this time from the back door. I lay there in the dark, holding my breath, staring at the ceiling. The knock came again, and again. I didn't move. I didn't even blink. I just stared at the ceiling, pulse pounding in my ears. The back door? That door led into the kitchen, and the backyard was fenced in. Nobody should be back there. No one could be back there, unless they climbed the fence or came through someone else's yard. The knock came again, slower this time. 3 distinct taps, then silence. I sat up in bed, legs trembling as they touched the cold floor. My phone was on the nightstand, but I didn't call anyone. Not yet. Part of me was still trying to rationalize it. Maybe a raccoon? A tree branch? Maybe I didn't hear anything at all. But deep down, I knew better. I moved slowly toward the kitchen, every step like walking through molasses. The house creaked around me, the old hardwood floors betraying my every movement. I kept the lights off, hoping the dark would hide me, like that made any sense. From the hallway, I could just barely see the back door. The porch light was on. I never leave the porch light on. I swear it was off when I got home. I remember locking the front door, checking the lights like I always do. But now the light was shining through the glass of the back door, casting a dim glow across the kitchen floor. And then I saw it, a silhouette, motionless, right outside the door. Not knocking this time, just standing there. I froze, my mouth dry, breath caught in my throat. I leaned just enough to peek. The figure was tall, wearing something dark, head tilted slightly, like they were listening. They didn't move. Neither did I. I watched them for a full minute, heart hammering so loud, I thought they'd hear it. And then, like some kind of sick joke, they stepped closer to the door, close enough that I could see their hand. They raised it slowly, pressed it against the glass, and just stood there. I took one silent step back, then another. I wanted to scream. I wanted to do something, grab my phone, call the police, yell anything, but I just kept backing away, terrified that any sound would draw them in. And then, they turned and walked away. Not in a rush, not like someone trying to run or hide. They just walked off the porch and disappeared into the dark. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my bedroom with the door locked, phone in my hand, staring at the hallway like they might come back. I checked the locks 3 more times. Every creak in the house made my skin crawl. I didn't call the police. What would I even say? Someone knocked and stood outside and left. It felt stupid, unreal, like maybe I was overreacting. But the next morning, I found something that made everything real. On the back porch, under the light, I noticed muddy footprints. They led from the back gate, straight to the door. And then they stopped. No trail back. Like whoever it was never left. That's when I finally called the police. An officer came by, took a look around. I showed him the footprints, explained everything. He nodded along, but I could tell he didn't really believe me. He said it was probably a drunk person who got lost or a kid playing a prank. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe it was just a one-time thing. But that was just the beginning. Over the next week, little things started to happen. I'd come home and notice my mailbox left open, the garbage can knocked over. A single garden gnome, one I didn't own, placed right by my front steps. Each time, I questioned myself. Did I forget the mailbox? Was it windy? Did someone leave the gnome as a joke? But by Thursday night, I couldn't lie to myself anymore. I got home late again, just after 11 p.m. As I pulled into the driveway, my headlights swept across the front of my house, and something caught my eye. My living room curtains were slightly open. I always kept them shut, and behind the curtain, I saw movement, just a flicker, like someone had just stepped out of sight. I killed the engine, heart racing, hand frozen on the keys. I hadn't even gone inside yet. I called the police from my car. This time, they took it seriously. 2 officers arrived within minutes. They walked through the house with me, checking every room. Nothing was taken. No signs of forced entry. But that curtain had been moved. I hadn't left it like that. And there was something else, a smell in the air. Faint but foul, like something old, musty, like mildew and sweat. One of the officers asked if I had any guests or roommates. I didn't. He gave me a look I didn't like maybe I was the problem. They told me to consider installing cameras. Told me it might help ease my mind. I installed them the next day. 2 outside, one facing the front porch, one in the backyard by the fence. and one inside, in the hallway, facing the living room and kitchen. I checked them religiously. 3 days passed. Nothing. And then, the fourth night, something. At 2:41 a.m., the hallway camera picked up motion. A figure, not coming in from a door, coming out of the hallway closet. They stepped out slowly, like they'd been hiding there. They walked past the camera, through the living room, and out of frame. I never heard a thing. I didn't even know someone was inside my house. The police came again. They searched the closet, found a small vent in the back that led to the crawl space under the house. It was old, barely wide enough for a person to squeeze through, but it was open. They think whoever it was had been living there, coming out at night, moving around when I slept, watching me. I moved out 2 days later, left everything behind. It didn't matter. I still don't know who they were, or how long they'd been there. The police never caught anyone, never found prints, never found anything in the crawl space but a tattered sleeping bag and a few empty water bottles. But here's the part that haunts me the most. The last clip from the hallway camera, before I pulled the plug on it, shows the figure standing at my bedroom door. Just standing there, watching me sleep.